Willowbrook Manor was a place of elegance and history, nestled deep in the countryside. Its grandeur had faded with time, but the sense of foreboding surrounding it remained intact. Tales of hauntings and strange occurrences had plagued the manor for generations, and on a crisp autumn evening, I decided to spend the night there. The manor was a towering presence, its ivy-covered walls and looming turrets casting eerie silhouettes against the fading twilight. As I ventured inside, the air grew heavy, and the silence was punctuated only by the creaking of old floorboards beneath my feet. I explored the manor's dimly lit rooms, their faded wallpaper and antique furniture hinting at a past long gone. It was as if time itself had stood still within those walls. But it was the portrait in the grand foyer that caught my attention, a painting of a woman with piercing, haunted eyes. The eyes followed me as I moved, their gaze unrelenting. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the portrait, and a sense of unease settled over me. As night fell, I settled into a dusty, antique armchair in the drawing room, determined to uncover the truth behind the haunting of Willowbrook Manor. The room was bathed in the soft glow of candlelight, and the air grew colder. And then, as if in response to my presence, the woman from the portrait materialized before me. Her form was translucent, her gown tattered and ethereal. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I stammered, my heart racing, and asked, "Who are you?" The woman's hollow gaze seemed to bore into my soul, and she replied, "I am Eloise. I've been waiting for you." Eloise's voice was filled with a haunting sadness that sent a chill down my spine. I knew I had to find out who she was and why she was trapped within Willowbrook Manor. With trepidation, I followed Eloise as she floated down a darkened corridor, her presence guiding me through the labyrinthine mansion. She led me to a hidden room, its door concealed behind an ornate tapestry. The room was filled with the trappings of a forgotten time, a vanity adorned with antique cosmetics, a canopy bed draped in dusty curtains, and a worn diary lying open on a nightstand. I picked up the diary and began to read, uncovering the tragic tale of Eloise, a young woman who had lived in Willowbrook Manor centuries ago. She had been falsely accused of witchcraft and condemned to a horrific fate, burned at the stake on the manor's grounds. As I read her story, the room seemed to come alive with a mournful energy. The candles flickered, and the air grew colder, as if Eloise's presence filled every corner. I turned to her, my voice trembling. "I'm so sorry, Eloise." Eloise's form wavered, and I could feel her gratitude. She reached out a hand, her fingers icy to the touch, and as our hands met, a blinding light enveloped us. The room shook with an otherworldly force, and I could hear the distant echoes of screams and chants. And then, with a final surge of energy, the room fell silent, and I found myself standing alone. Willowbrook Manor was finally free of its haunting, and Eloise's spirit was at peace. As I left the manor, I couldn't help but wonder how many other forgotten souls remained trapped in the darkness of time, waiting for someone to set them free. Antique stores had always held a special fascination for me, a place where the past seemed to linger in the form of forgotten relics. It was in one such store that I came across an ornate, full-length mirror with an air of malevolence that sent shivers down my spine. The mirror's frame was ornate and imposing, with intricate carvings of serpents and demons. As I stared into its glass, I could see my own reflection, but there was something off about it, a darkness that seemed to lurk just beneath the surface. I couldn't resist the urge to buy the mirror, despite the shopkeeper's warnings of its cursed nature. I thought it was merely superstition, but little did I know the horrors that awaited me. I hung the mirror in my bedroom, and from the moment it was in my home, an oppressive atmosphere settled over the room. The air grew colder, and strange shadows seemed to dance in its reflection, their movements unnatural and unsettling. As I gazed into the mirror one evening, I saw her, a woman in a tattered white gown, her hair hanging loose around her face. Her eyes were hollow and filled with despair, and she seemed to reach out to me from within the mirror. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I stumbled back, my heart racing, but the mirror held a malevolent grip on me. I couldn't look away, and the woman's form seemed to grow more substantial, as if she were trying to break through the glass. Night after night, I was drawn to the mirror, unable to resist its sinister pull. The woman's presence grew stronger, and I could hear her cries for help echoing in my mind. Desperate to uncover the truth, I delved into the mirror's history, and what I found sent a chill down my spine. The mirror had once belonged to a woman named Eliza, who had been accused of dark magic and sentenced to a life of imprisonment within the mirror's cursed reflection. I knew then that I had to free Eliza from her torment. With the help of a psychic, we performed a ritual to break the mirror's curse. The room was filled with a blinding light, and I could feel Eliza's presence beside me. She was finally free, her eyes no longer haunted. With a grateful smile, she whispered her thanks and disappeared into the light. The mirror lay shattered on the floor, its malevolence vanquished. My home was no longer haunted, and I felt a sense of peace that I had never known. But I couldn't help but wonder how many other cursed mirrors held trapped souls, waiting for someone to set them free. The Whispering Woods had always been a place of mystery and trepidation, its dense foliage and ancient trees shrouded in legends of the paranormal. It was said that the forest was cursed, haunted by vengeful spirits and unexplained phenomena that had driven most away. One moonless night, I ventured into the heart of the Whispering Woods, determined to uncover its secrets. The forest was alive with eerie sounds, the soft rustling of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, and the faint murmurs that gave the woods its name. As I walked deeper into the forest, the air grew colder, and the trees seemed to close in around me. I could hear the whispers growing louder, their voices more insistent, as if the very forest itself were trying to communicate with me. And then, as I entered a small clearing, I saw her, a woman in a tattered white gown, her dark hair hanging loose around her face. She stood at the edge of the clearing, her eyes hollow and filled with despair. "Help me," she whispered, her voice carrying a sense of urgency. I couldn't resist her plea. I approached her, my heart pounding, and reached out a hand to touch her. As our fingers made contact, a blinding light enveloped us, and the forest seemed to come alive with a malevolent force. The trees twisted and contorted, their branches reaching out like gnarled fingers. The whispers grew louder, their words filled with anger and sorrow. I could feel the woman's presence beside me, her anguish overwhelming. And then, with a sudden, violent force, the forest seemed to close in around us, a wall of darkness that swallowed us whole. Hours, perhaps even days, passed in that nightmarish realm. I lost all sense of time, my mind consumed by the whispers that filled my ears. I saw other trapped souls, their faces twisted with pain and sorrow, and I knew I was not alone. But through the madness, I clung to a single thought, the need to escape, to break free from the cursed woods. And then, one day, it happened. The forest grew still, the whispers silenced, and I found myself back on the forest floor, alone. I stumbled to my feet, weak and disoriented, and made my way out of the Whispering Woods. The once dense forest seemed to have lost its malevolence, as if the darkness that had trapped me had been lifted. As I left the cursed woods behind, I couldn't help but wonder about the woman in the tattered white gown, the spirit who had reached out to me from the other side. What had happened to her, and why was she trapped in the whispering woods? The mysteries of the forest would stay with me forever, a chilling reminder that some places held secrets that were best left undisturbed.